Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mall Talkers. I'm Michael Paskett, aka the Mall Guy, and this is the show where retail and mall pros come to talk shop. In 30 minutes or less, I'm bringing you conversations from the strategists, the operators, and innovators driving the evolution of malls today. You'll leave with tactics, stories, and trends shaping what malls were, where they've been, and what they're becoming. So pull up a chair, grab a coffee, and let's talk malls. Today, I've got another very special guest, Phil McArthur, the founder and chairman from Phil McArthur Partners. Why this is interesting is he has a very long-lasting experience in the mall space across the globe. Today, we're going to be talking about retail portfolios, diagnosing and fixing underperforming centers. Phil, welcome.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for taking the time today.
Very, very welcome.
Can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, your history, where you've been, where you're at now?
Oh, yeah. I was just thinking about that this morning. I think my career was in three phases. Because in 1981, I became a shopping center manager in Canada. Yeah. And that was mostly like an assistant manager trainee position. So I worked at Bramalea and I worked at Cambridge shopping centers. Yep. And those shopping centers were in the Burlington area. And then I was moved out to Vancouver. And my family and I lived there for 10 years and managed properties in the Vancouver area. But in 1996, I was invited to interview for a VP job in Dubai. And that's when Dubai was kind of, nobody had heard of it. And what was that? And how could they have a shopping mall there? And I was successful. And from 96 to 2011, I worked in Dubai. We lived in Cairo. We lived in Dubai again, and also in New Delhi, India.
So cool.
And that was kind of my corporate senior role as a developer, leasing guy with an operating background. And then in 2011, I set up a consultancy. Yep. And have been working as the chairman and, managing director of that consultancy for about 15 years. And I think we learned a lot in those 15 years, but we also understand that we have a special niche because we do get involved in residential projects and mixed use developments and office and all of that. But we're always looking at how to improve the retail or how to make the retail sustainable. So that's it, my career: shopping center manager, senior executive, and then consultant.
Which is absolutely fascinating.
Thank you.
Let's dive into it. So How would you assess and improve the performance of large retail or mixed-use projects?
Whether they're large or small, they all follow some fundamentals. And if we get involved in a project that's failing, we typically find that there were errors in judgment or in strategy or just lack of experience. So it's very easy for a new developer to hire an architect to say, build me a shopping center. But that's just the hardware. And nobody goes to a shopping center for the hardware. They go for the software. They go for the brands. They go for the experience. They go for the food. They go for the entertainment. And not understanding that, if a brand wants to go to a shopping center, they have to make a strategic decision. It's almost like a gambling decision. Are we going to put our money there? And are we going to be profitable? And a lot of developers don't understand that part. They only think about land, building, and renting. So when we look at a project and how we assess it, we go right back to the basics. Where is it? What's the access? What's the guest experience? Is there decent parking? Is there micro mobility on a big site? Is there connectivity with transit? So how does the customer get there? Do we make it easy for them? And do we make it intuitive? And I think some of that will migrate into the discussion we have about your firm and how you can help. We used to dream about having these kinds of tools. So when we get beyond just the guest experience and the arrival experience, we start to understand what is the competitive position of this property. Is it a small center that's trying to get market share, or is it a huge mega mall that needs to have 20% of the market? And do we have all the fundamentals? Now, 40 years ago, those fundamentals were 4 department stores and 200 shops
Yep.
and a pancake house.
Yep.
But today, that's very different because department stores have lost their charm and their market share. And specialty brands like Apple and Nike and H&M and Zara, they're the new anchors, as well as the entertainment offerings and the F&B. So we look at these elements because we know that great experiences don't just happen, they're planned to the nth detail. So in our analysis, we're like doctors. We have to go in and look at what are the symptoms and what are the root causes of their problems. So that's the assessment part, and we get into everything. We walk the common areas, we photograph them, we look at the staff, we look at the toilets, we look at the cleanliness, we look at the customer service. Are they friendly? Do they have directories? Do they know where the shops are? We talk to the security guards to see, do they know them? So we're like operators that have been in the driver's seat, and we want to make sure that everything on our list is basically run at a first class level. So I made a few notes, just other things like circulation.
Yep.
Now that gets into your world, but your world is a tool to help us understand circulation. And many times developers and the architects will figure out this plot of land is this shape, and we can stretch the mall boundaries so far with certain setbacks. And sometimes those end up with little, malls that come off an entry that only have 4 or 5 shops. We call them stub malls, or, they're dead ends, really.
Yep.
And we know when we go through those doorways that the traffic is very low. And, then what would you do in that small section to increase traffic? And typically it's putting a destinational, operator in that area. But we also get into the sales of every shop. We look at visual merchandising. We look at, is the store manager attentive? Because again, it's not about the hardware, it's about the software, and it's about when I'm going there to shop with my family or by myself, or my wife is going, is she getting what she needs, and is she getting the right service at the mall market? So it's all about delivering on the promise. But I think that kind of gives you the general idea of what we look at when we're looking at large properties. And we do drill down, like the whole thing is based on money.
Yep.
So we could talk about all these tactics and techniques and all these nuances, but what is your annual traffic? What is your conversion? How much volume are you doing? And what percentage of that volume are you getting for income? And, we have properties that we work with that talk a lot to us about what is the market rate for other malls in the area? How come my rent is so low? And we have to point out that what someone else is charging for rent is really not like in residential where, that's the market value. It's that other property was able to bring twice as many customers, have twice as many conversions, and therefore would probably get twice the rent. So rent is earned. It is not prescribed. So that's the big issue that we can talk about all day, because we're just basically building sales machines, just like a retail store is a sales machine.
Well said. I like that it's earned and not given.
Right.
Within here, you've obviously worked all throughout the world. You have clients all throughout the world. How do you localize your recommendations? Because I've been to malls all throughout the world as well.
Yeah.
There are nuances, cultural, like area, just how people interact with these places.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know you've been to the Far East, and when you go to the Far East, you're amazed because you see shopping centers that are 9 levels.
Shocking. It's shocking.
And you go, well, I'm working in Canada. We like 1 level. Because we have lots of land, and land is relatively cheap.
Yep.
So, we have to, that cultural or habitual relationship with where I live, where I work, and where I shop. If I'm in Shanghai or Bangkok and everything, or Hong Kong, and everybody's living vertically, and everybody's connected on the ground, maybe from a metro or pedestrian access, then the shopping can work in a vertical manner because there is no other option. And those developers in the Far East have really learned how to segment the different levels so they have a meaning. So, it may be a standard retail fashion mall for 3 floors, but then you get into marketplaces and F&B destinations and entertainment destinations on top of each other. So that's one thing, is to understand what is the typology that kind of works in that marketplace. Now, I learned that from working in Cairo on a big project called City Stars.
Yep.
And that project, believe it or not, was 8 million square feet of total development in one city block. So that included the parking, 6,000 parking, 2 million square feet of retail, 4 5-star hotels, and 3 or 4 residential towers and 2 or 3 office towers, all in one block. So there, the developer had designed multi-levels, and it worked because we were able to, once again, look at the activities and make sure that the convention center on the top floor was supported by the entertainment center below, and then the F&B level, and on and on and on. So that's one thing, the physical dynamic. But localization to me means more about local operators and local brands. So, how everybody complains that all malls are the same? They say that to you all the time. They say it to me all the time. And I say, well, there's good reason why much of it is the same. Because over the last 50, 60, 70 years, we've learned how to build shopping centers, how to move people through shopping centers, how wide the mall should be, how many floors it should be, where the parking should be. We've learned all that. We've also learned that in many emerging markets, hypermarkets drive millions of customers into the building every year. So you'll see hypermarkets all through the Middle East. You'll see it all through Asia, in Eastern Europe, and even in France, the early shopping centers were all they invented the hypermarket, the hypermarché. So we look at that to say, is that a function that will work in this market? And typically, in emerging markets, the food supermarket, hypermarket is the one that kind of leads the parade. So then we look at, what is our merchandising mix going to be relative to our competitive position? So we're talking about a large shopping center. We typically are going after fashion. Okay. Now, if I'm working in Iraq, my fashion options are not the same as Dubai. But going back 30 years ago in Dubai, we didn't have the brands either. So we had to get on airplanes and travel the world and knock on doors and say, hey, we're at the mall, and here's what we're going to do. And people go, what, where, when, how? But eventually, the Starbucks came, and the Virgin Megastore came, and the Zara's came, and the H&M's came to the project. So what I'm getting at is, that's not localized. That's kind of the international aspect that we want in all our super regional malls. But maybe that only deals with 50% of the space. So now we have the other 50%. And if we think about it, not everybody wants the British casual dining or the American casual dining. They want their own dining, and you want to get your own local operators. So we have to dig into the market to find out who are the local operators, which ones are rated the best. And we have all the technology today with TripAdvisor and, Google reviews. So we can get a taste, or pardon the pun, we can get a feeling of, these are the real players. And then you get into categories like barbershops and hair salons and, the local services, money exchange. They're going to be local operators. So our job is really to get this fine balance between really strong regional and international and strong local, so people feel like their mall didn't land from outer space. It actually came from their own market. So that's kind of how we look at it.
Yeah.
And then obviously how you market it, how you brand it, how you, execute. And then some markets have, different nuances for national holidays, religious holidays that are different for different parts of the world. So I get a laugh out of talking to new clients in new countries, because they all say to me, well, Mr. Phil, it's different here. They all
Yep.
say the same thing.
Yep.
And I know it's not different here because the customers are primarily the same. They're, whether they're singles or couples or families, they all have the same aspirations for their families. They want their children to go to school and be well dressed and well nutrition. And, we sometimes think about countries from the political aspect, but remember, these are just a group of people that would enjoy your new shopping center if you get it together. So I think the think local, act global kind of thing sometimes fits in our way we tackle that challenge.
Yeah, it sounds like integrated into the local space within there. And an example I'll give, like obviously travel to malls throughout the world. An example that resonates with what you said would be going to Central World in Thailand.
Yeah.
When I am going there, I do not want to go to Zara, H&M. Like I'm not going there. There's a store there called Good Goods, and it's like local Thai shirts, local Thai, like everything.
Yeah.
Go there, have been to Thailand 3 or 4 times. Every single time, pick up a new shirt that I always get compliments on, pick up toys for the kids and something for my wife, and it's authentic, but I still go to the other stores to check out, and it's like it's comfortable, like I'm aware and know what to expect. And then
Yeah.
there's these hidden gems that help to bring it back, like, oh, I am in Thailand. I am in this local space.
Yeah, I think excuse me, some of those big international brands, they work very hard to make sure their execution is the same everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like comfort food.
Yep.
You go in the mall, you go, oh, that's H&M, and I'm comfortable with that, and I know what they're selling, and this mall is part of the big leagues because they have it. And sometimes, like in Dubai, the Primark stores just open.
Yep, I heard.
And everybody's been waiting for years. Like Unigo may open one day, okay? So everybody watches the market, and Primark opens, and it's, the response to that is astonishing.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a bit of a consumer frenzy that they've created because there's no real logical reason that Primark would. It's not like people weren't able to shop in other clothing stores, but somehow that brand, that position, that price point got people excited. And that's an interesting thing because, when I first got involved in the shopping center business, I thought that was our job, getting everybody excited, getting them in the door, making them delighted in the visit. And so today, when we can see, new brands coming in and that excitement, that's reassuring that, all those predictions during COVID were wrong, that the shopping center is dead. It's quite
Thank
the
God.
opposite.
Yep.
It's during COVID, I wished I could go to the shopping center and see my friend, have a coffee, take my family there. And I think now people have realized that we play that role of a town square in every city.
Mm-hmm.
And COVID also taught us some great things about hygiene and sanitization, but also maybe these old malls that we built 20, 30 years ago that are like fortresses with walls and doors, maybe they have to be permeable. Maybe we have to take some walls down, and maybe we have to put some terraces outside and some family play areas. So again, I think that the mall is dead was highly overrated.
Yep.
I'm not saying that, some of the B and C malls around the world are not struggling, but that's attrition. That's just because online shopping took that piece of the market, or the bigger mall took that piece of the market, or that neighborhood convenience center took that piece of the market.
I would even say, like, within this, COVID obviously shook things up. Malls are dead. I don't know. I would say the playbook of malls in the past and I think it was you that told me this, the barbell mall. You've got 2 anchor tenants with
dumbbell.
Yep, dumbbell. Yeah. That, in my opinion, is gone. Like, if you do not change how you work with that mall, your tenant mix, actually add things on, like that, I would say is dead. If you're not changing to a community, a third space, experiential activations, all these other things, you're behind at this point, and far behind.
I think the dumbbell, when it opened in the 50s and 60s, everybody was delighted because you could go into a air-conditioned or heated common area, and it would be like shopping the main street.
Yep.
And the department stores were a big deal back then, okay? Everybody had a department store credit card, and it was a big deal. But today, when someone brings me a design and it's a dumbbell, And I'm thinking, well, why can't we build a racetrack? Why can't we build like a way for people to circulate? Because the problem with the dumbbell is I'm in one place, I walk to one end, I have to walk past all the same stores when I go back. So
Mhm.
we don't want that. We want to get people passing as many shop fronts as we can. So I'm a big believer in the racetrack, and it is an evolution. Now, design is a very interesting topic, and you walk a lot of malls.
One or
Sometimes
two.
you walk in the door and you go, I get it. I
Mhm.
get this whole place. And sometimes you walk in the door and go, I have no idea where I am. I have no idea where I'm going, and I don't even know how to get there. And that's because the architecture, the wayfinding, the intuitive design, and the finishes was not thought through as to what the guest experience would be. Okay. So we give an example of Mall of the Emirates, which I was
Yep.
involved with. Okay. Now, we had just come off the success of the city center Dira,
Yep.
which, was the first mall in Dubai to have a hypermarket, et cetera, et cetera. And our owner, Majid Al Futtaim, went and bought this land. And, we were going to do a ski hill and all these things. And we were fortunate to have a development director who came from Australia, who was actually a city planner by training. And that really helped us because he was able to convince the municipality to have an off ramp off the highway. Where in North America is there an off ramp to go into the parking lot of a shopping center without? So
Nowhere.
fly over into the parking lot. He convinced us that all the parking should be on one side.
Clever.
All the anchors should be on the other side of the mall. So when people get out to go to the anchor tenants, they have to walk through 300 or 400 meters. So we learned a lot about design and how that enhances the guest experience. So I think, again, design is a pretty big issue that we spend a lot of time trying to help our clients improve.
Without question. And so you've obviously, in your stage 2 of life, leased a number of malls within the GCC region.
Yeah.
What did you see as some common challenges?
This one I enjoyed writing my notes. Now, let's give credit where credit's due. Some of the big properties I worked on, there was a real strong effort to do it right, be organized, and try to move the benchmark.
Yep.
And those are a pleasure to work on. But, some of my clients today, if they're building a brand new mall, sometimes I take them through Mall of the Emirates just to show them all the building blocks, like how it works, how the circulation works, how the brands work, how the anchors work, how the marketing works, how the directories work. And I have clients that come out of that and say, oh, well, this is very nice, but my mall will be better. Now I know that they don't appreciate the complexity of what we're talking about. And I use the analogy, when we get off that A3 bus, A380, do we think, oh, I could build one of those too? No, we can't build that.
No.
And the Mall of the Emirates has that same complexity. If you think about the land, the building, the architecture, the contractor, the tenants contractors, the operations, the security, the technology, the design criteria, the customer service, it's layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, and it all comes together as a package. So I think that ego versus reality sometimes becomes a problem for me. If my clients were in the West and they were pension funds, I don't think we would have this discussion, because the pension funds are very rigid about what they want to do, what they don't want to do, what kind of risk profile they have, and how much they're willing to work the projects. But in the Middle East, they tend to be big projects owned by single families or very wealthy individuals. And sometimes their version of reality is not reality. So, for example, Mr. Phil, I'm doing a new mall in Cairo and I want Louis Vuitton. And I say, well, that's fantastic, because Louis Vuitton will come to Cairo one day. They're not there today. I don't know if it's on their roadmap. I don't even know if your project would fit their criteria. So I'm trying to change the discussion from what you want to what they want, because it doesn't matter what you want as a developer. If Louis Vuitton does not see your real estate as a productive location that can garner great sales and make them great profit, you don't even have a chance. So the thing I tell my clients is you have to respect all the retailers. You have to respect that it's not Netflix where you just push a button and it just shows up, and that you have to understand what their motivation is. And, I've signed many leases in my life, and I know everyone that was signed by the retailer was, Phil, we think the development's going to be good. We like the game plan. We're willing to sign up. We're willing to put the CapEx into the fit out. We're willing to pay these rents because we think we're going to make a profit. And whether that's for value retail, like a dollar store, or whether that's for Louis Vuitton, the exact same measurement happens. So I think that boils down to who are the professionals versus the amateurs. Hard to imagine an amateur is going to build a 2 million square foot shopping center.
Yep.
But sometimes that's where my market opportunity is, right? Because I'll give an example on Mall of Qatar. So Mall of Qatar, Qatar is a very great country with great people and a great resolve to nation build. And we saw that in the World Cup, and we saw it recently, their posture on the Iran war. And but we worked on one project where it was under construction, and it was 2 million square feet of rentable area, 550 shops. And the design was done by a very professional firm in London, and the people running the project were very competent.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem was they were building and they had not talked to anybody about renting. And that's a dangerous world to be in, because I'm building 550 shops and I'm just guessing who will come in. So we had to reverse engineer and say, okay, what have you built? What have you designed? What's coming out of the ground? Can we change any of it? Which sometimes very difficult to do when the foundations are poured. And now we'll talk to the hypermarket. And the thing we found is they were talking to the hypermarket before, but it was more about, what do you need for back of the house? What do you need for storage? What do you need for refrigeration? Nobody said, would you like to rent in our mall? So that lack of experience is a market opportunity for us, because we came in, I worked on that project for 5 years.
Yep, I'm sure.
And basically we took over the leasing, and we successfully leased it in a very hard market. So I think what you talked about challenges is managing unrealistic expectations, underestimating how difficult all of this is, unrealistic timeframes. Oh, Mr. Phil, we want to finish the design and open in 3 months. We're saying, what about prospecting? What about negotiation? What about, getting documents signed? What about submitting your designs for fit out? So again, that's a great opportunity for us, because we can just give them how it really works. Another thing that I realized many years ago, having worked for Majid Al Futtaim, he owned the mall, he owned the hypermarket, he owned the cinema, he owned the entertainment center, and he owned maybe 5 or 10 brands in the mall. That meant to me that he put his money where his mouth is. He not only built the hardware, but he said, I will take risk on 30% of the renting space, and I will run it. And the rest will be rented to the market. Where we go to some developers, and they're not, obviously not equipped to run their own concepts. So we say, well, perhaps you should put some money aside in the pro forma for some incentives, because, the world is more complicated. It may not be that those brands from Kuwait, the Al Shaya brands, want to go in your mall.
Yeah.
And maybe you have to give them some financial incentive. So you better face that early, put it in your pro forma, because you know what it's going to cost to build your mall, but maybe this is the cost of bringing in the brands. A lot of developers will say, there's no way we're ever going to pay anything to anyone. And we have to patiently say, well, if we can do it without paying to somebody, we'll do it. But, typically that doesn't happen. So, in the Middle East, the brands really, there's 5 companies that have 300 brands.
Yep.
And you need them. So, and I've been dealing with all those guys for 30 years. So I've seen we want in your mall to we don't want in your mall. What can you do to get us to want to be in your mall? Yep. So I think those are some of the challenges. I think another one in Dubai in the old days was, how big is my mall? How big is this guy's mall? Oh, I want my mall to be bigger.
Yep.
And what does bigger have to do with making a return on investment?
Whose horse is bigger?
And sometimes bigger can be a real problem because the story is stretched. You can't find the tenants. The mall has 90 stores on one wing. And, it would have been better to maybe take some of that GLA and put it into residential or hotel or office to diversify. So I hope that kind of talks about some of the challenges.
Oh, it brilliantly does.
The other one I wrote down is no business plan. So
I hear that all the time.
I'm building 2 million square feet, but I don't have a market study, a leasing study, a financial study, a marketing study, a competitive study, because I'm winging it. I'm doing it on my intuition, and that can be sometimes
problematic.
It can be successful if you get it right, but I think problematic because you are not respecting your competition.
Yep.
And people say, well, I don't really care about my competition because my mall will be better. And I think, they were there for 20 years. They've been operating. They've earned their rent. They've earned their customers. They've earned their sales. You're just talking about it. So for you to not respect them really makes me obviously Nike respects Adidas, right? And they monitor everything they do every day because they're in the game of market share. Yep. So it's a shopping center. So I think that hopefully covers the challenges.
It brilliantly does. A last question I have before we depart. So you have been in the mall retail industry for 40 plus years.
Yeah.
What are the most important current influences for ensuring strong performance? And obviously what everyone cares about, financial returns.
Yeah. Well, go back to the first part of the discussion where we talk about fundamentals.
Yep.
So we have so many new techniques that we can use to help ourselves with mobile data, analytics, the work you're doing in mapping and making navigation and workflow enhancing. These are things I only dreamt of when I was the manager of a mall in Vancouver or in Waterloo, because everything was manual. Yep. Even the directories. Okay, we take that little plexiglass out, we get the letter set, we put the new name of the store in, we put it in. As the mall manager, I go around every day and look at the directory and say, is it up to date? Because I have an obligation to the customer to be current. If I'm not current, I'm sloppy. So why would I be sloppy? So that's one issue. Now today, we have what I would call the ability to do smart development.
Yep.
And first of all the information we have today on retail and retailers and their customers and their customer profiles and their habits and the way they navigate around the shopping center is hugely valuable to leasing and to operating. And I think also when we talk about technology, the discussion we had a few weeks ago, I am completely annoyed when I go to a shopping center and there's no wayfinding on my phone. I am spoiled. I go everywhere in the world, and I'm all over the world. I can find the place in Cairo. I can find a place in New Delhi, but I can't find the place in Conestoga Mall, because it's not, you explained to me the blue dot doesn't work in an internal building. So when I think about Mappedin and what you guys are doing, it is it's just state of the art, but it's not complicated because everybody's used to using this kind of tool. So I think that is one of the things. So one of the big changes, when I first worked at Burlington Mall back in 1981, I worked with this lady named Betty Ann Miller, who was a shopping center manager.
Yep.
And she taught us the right way. And the right way was get out of your office and be on the mall and know every mall store manager and talk to them about what's selling and what's not selling and what can we do better. So we had this very department store type manager mentality.
Yeah.
And I see that has faded away. And everybody's looking at spreadsheets and pro formas and all of this. But, here's another thing. I go into a shop and I want to buy a product and they don't have it in the inventory, but I know they have it online. Why doesn't the sales associate, help me make that transaction?
Yep.
So we have this technology that we're not quite using, but I know with some of your clients are using it aggressively. So I think that data knowledge, smart development, digital. I have a client in Riyadh with a great mall, no website.
Yep.
And I'm going, guys, like everybody's got a website. Even a one-man band has a website. So you again are not taking advantage of the technology. And how great is social media to be able to talk to your customers daily if you want to? So I think those are the things that we didn't have that we have today. And I guess the other realization is everything that we did before is not acceptable, right? We cannot build a 1990s mall in 2026. A lot of the projects we're working on, we're doing something in Riyadh. The first piece will not open until 31, 32. So we are really in the future business, and we need to be paying attention to trends around the world, concepts that can work, and operating realities that make our developers profitable.
Well said. And I will say thank you for joining. You have the utmost knowledge within this space. Do you want, or I want to give you the time if you have any parting words, anything last to say to our listeners?
No, I don't. I really appreciate the chance to meet you earlier. I love your posts on LinkedIn. I like the position of the mall guy.
Slay.
You took away my label.
Got you to it first.
Well, there may be a book there. And really, what I like is we are not just talking about how Mappedin can apply to the shopping center business. We're getting exciting about the shopping center business and layering Mappedin as a tool to make us more professional, more efficient, and more customer centric. So that's really my closing comment, is how much of a pleasure it is to meet you and work on this together. And hopefully we will collaborate soon in the future. Absolutely will. Thank you again. And as always, thank you to all the Mall Talker listeners. We'll see you next episode. Bye. Thanks again.